the Go Berserk with Email podcast with Navy nuclear engineer turned email software developer, Troy Broussard. So calm.
I'm pissed off, but I'm telling this because I am teaching you how to think differently and how to test differently.
So patient.
And Ben, that's put $500,000 into this company too, is being told that nobody can find the goddamn bug.
So charitable.
I'm going to start paying bounties every time somebody finds a bug. We're going to deduct $10 for that week.
So trusting.
Do not assume that anything works. Assume that nothing works.
And so sweet, it makes sugar taste just like salt.
I want to play into the sexiness of marketing automation, but I also want to slap the complexity of it.
The Go Berserk with Email podcast begins now.
Look, I know we're supposed to be doing a show, but I feel obligated to do this. If you guys can hear my voice right now and you haven't left a rating, review, some kind of comment, and I think I don't know about you, Troy. I think I'd even love some bad press. If you guys hate this show, that would be even funnier if you told us that.
Somebody needs his ego stroke today. That's what we're talking about here, guys. Poor Jonathan is feeling used and abused. I just assume everybody loves me, Jonathan. So, my ego's totally fine. But I mean, I understand. Let's spread the love a little bit, right?
You're much healthier than me. You're much healthier than me, man. So it's good to be back. It's good to be with you, man. And I'm excited about today. What do you have for us?
We're going to talk about one of the best investments you can make. This is a banking investment. We're going to totally switch gears here, Jonathan. We're just going to go into the financial segment and talk about banking and industry today. That really ought to excite our email tribe, right? I mean, they love banking and finance. Now, we're going to go into email banking, guys, email banking. And this is truly probably your biggest asset. I think that most people don't realize the biggest asset they have in their business is their email list. And ironically, they tend to neglect it. And I, for the life of me, can't figure that out. I've, run high-end campaigns for high-end marketers that are spending tens and tens of thousands of dollars on lead generation, and they do it for some one-time promotion, and then they just ignore the leads for months. They just, let them go decrepit and die on the vine, right? Instead of reaping that harvest through daily email. So we're going to talk about today, how do you do that? How do you create a bank of emails ready to go so that, you don't fall into those bad habits of not emailing frequently enough?
Well, I am excited to explore this topic. And you're a prolific writer, so I imagine you have some great tricks to share with us.
Yeah, it's funny. I went on a road trip with Tom Beal, good friend of mine, a while. Yeah. We went on a road trip. This was more than a year ago now, year and a half ago, 2 years, something like that. I don't recall. Hell, I've slept once or twice since then. So, the memory resets on periodic sleep, right? So, but we went on this road trip, and it was like a 4 or 5 day road trip. Took my big old Suburban and cruised up to North or South Carolina, one of the two. Hell, I get them mixed up. They're right there. The same thing. You kind of go across the river and you're one side or the other. But anyway, we went up to an event, and at the end of this hanging out with me, Tom created a name for me of Mr. Prolific and went out, and I actually got the domain. It actually redirects, mrprolific.com redirects to me. I went ahead and bought the domain because I thought it was a pretty apropos kind of distinction that he had made. And he had created this whole long debrief, about an hour-long debrief of just micro-analyzing what it was like being on a road trip with me for a few days. And it was kind of weird. It was kind of creepy in one sense. I'm like looking at this guy that was like, I didn't realize he was like micro-analyzing my every move for those several days. But what it turned out to be was actually quite cool, and got a recording of it, and who knows, Jonathan, if, somebody reaches out, and I'm not even going to tell them how, they're going to have to get creative, but if they reach out and manage to get through to me on the right spot somewhere, who knows, I might even just give them a free copy of that. But it was a really cool interview, or a debrief. It wasn't an interview. He just analyzed and went through, and what he did was he looked at all the different things I had done that allowed me to be prolific in the times of the day that other people looked at as wasted time. So as an example, we went out to lunch, and we went to get a Philly steakhouse at this, or Philly steak sandwich at this place, and super, super busy. And there wasn't even enough room. I know they were three times over the fire code already, right? There was just not enough room to even stand in there. And I told Tom, I said, I'm going to go wait outside. Do you mind, waiting for it? And I'm going to go hang out outside. And he's like, yeah, sure. And we were in there probably 15 minutes, and I was outside, and I went and got a table for us, and I sat down. And he came out, and he's just kind of shaking his head because, where most everybody else would just chill for 15 minutes, maybe check their email or do something like that. I had written 3 emails through voice dictation, sitting there at the table, just holding the table. And it was funny because everybody's kind of, I talk rather loud. I have this military background. I speak loud. I'm kind of half deaf in one ear anyway. So, and I'm trying to be quiet, and I've got the little cheap Apple headphones on. I'm just kind of holding the mic of the headphones up close to me, and just, because I'm not recording for sound quality. I'm just recording to get the content out as it's being transcribed. And so I got people looking at me like, what the hell is he doing? So they're talking to himself, and, during that 15 minutes while Tom was waiting to get lunch, I had written 3 emails for the day. Nice. And that was just one example. We had another thing where we were in an event we were watching. We're in the event together. And we're like, hey, we got to host a webinar. Let's get back to the hotel. Get back to the hotel. We had 12 minutes before the event was getting ready to kick off. And Tom's like, man, I'm kind of wiped out. I'm going to just rest my eyes for 10 minutes here and lay down. I'm like, okay, cool. And I walked out of the door, and let him in the room to lay down. And I'm out there in the hallway pacing back and forth, and it wasn't but about, I don't know, a minute after I walked out the door, Tom goes out and peeks out the door, and he goes, son of a bitch, I knew you were going to be out here writing or creating or doing something productive. And I said, well, it's what I do. At 12 minutes before the webinar, most people on the planet would be nervously trying to cram and prep for the final, time before getting on the webinar. I walked in 1 minute before the webinar, clicked, start, and ready to go. But in that meantime, I wrote another couple of emails and got a bunch more content created. So our entire trip was like that. While we were driving, I was recording content. I was brainstorming ideas. We'd be having a conversation. I'm like, hold that thought for a second. And then I'd hand him my phone and I say, hey, can you write this down for me? And boom, because my brain would go in a different direction. I'd have a thought of a product I wanted to create, or, a couple of emails that I wanted to write. And I would just give him, he would take them down because I was driving and help me out a little bit. And so the whole time he was just like, dude, you just never shut off. The brain just doesn't stop. And he was kind of blown away by the whole thing. And so he did this whole debrief on it. Well, this is one of the reasons that I'm able to get a lot of content out there, is because I believe in email banking. And email banking is about preparing for writing your emails in a way that makes it easy when you want to sit down and write. People tell me all the time, how do I know what to write? How do I come up with an idea? How do I do this? How do I do that? It's so hard to sit down and just write. The thing of it is, there's 2 different thought processes that go on, and they're independently. They should be independent actions, but people try to combine them. The creation of an idea is one thing. The execution of writing the email is another. And so I completely separate those tasks. And if you really want to get psychological on it and analyze the psychology of those, one is left brain, one is right brain. So when you're trying to combine those 2 activities together, that's where a lot of the difficulties come. That's where a lot of the resistance comes from. That's where writer's block sets in. Okay. But if you practice this discipline on a daily basis of email banking and just bank ideas to write about, then when you sit down to write, you can scan your list just like I did today, right? As we're recording this podcast, and people may not know, we batch record a few in a row and crank some out. Well, I'm going to look at my list of topics. I'm like, that one. You're like, hey, do this one. I'm like, not today. We'll do that. No, I'm not feeling that. Well, let's go with these. And it's because it's easy and it jumps off the page to me. I'm in the right mindset for that particular topic and I just roll with it, right? Mm-hmm. That makes the creation of content so much easier. And so I focus a lot of my time during the week, during the day, when I'm driving to the chiropractor or doctor's office, or when I'm out running an errand. I will frequently just pull over on the side of the road and start dictating a couple things and add to my list because I had a couple epiphanies of some ideas. Or I will just hit the voice recorder on my phone all the time, so I don't have to worry about still being driving and whatever. And I'll just dictate into the voice recorder, not trying to write the email, but just capture the idea. And I am capturing ideas to write about all throughout the day. On any given day, I probably capture 10 to 20 different email ideas that I want to write about, and probably 2 or 3 products that I want to create. Doesn't mean I create all of them. Doesn't mean I write all those emails, but I'm training myself to be creatively thinking towards an end result. I'm training myself through discipline of doing it every single day to capture ideas, and that trains you to be prolific. And so this is something I do everywhere, man, all day, every day, everywhere. I do it on a simple notes app on the iPhone. I just use the notes app, and I do the little to-do list, checklist, circle, task, note. And I just sit there and I'll be waiting in line at the bank, and I'll come up with 3 or 4 ideas to write an email about. And a lot of times they're rants, they're things that have irritated me, they're, stories about some moron and his driving abilities and, rushing to pass me, weaving in and out of traffic. And I'm just sitting there in my lane. And next thing you know, I'm passing him because he's weaved around and done all this and almost gotten 3 accidents. And the reality is he's not going anywhere, just, chasing his tail. And so all of these things are fodder for me. They're all, ideas. And I just focus on generating that bank of ideas for email all the time. And so I have an email bank, I have a products bank, and I add items into my email bank, ideas that I'm considering, but I also do the same for products that I want to create. And I'll just keep adding stuff in. Now, when I've got a block of time and I'm ready to do a product creation, I'll look at that and say, you know what, this one's popping off the page. I'm going to go do that. And that's the way I do it. It's really kind of a flow state creation. I allow myself to get into the flow quickly on things that resonate with me because I have so many different things that I could pick from. I'm always in surplus for ideas. I never have a deficit of what to write about. And this is the key to being really prolific. It's never being in that spot where you're just in this writer's block with a deficit of anything to talk about.
Dude, there's so much there. I don't know if you guys are picking up on this. And so the abundance piece, right? You're coming from abundance because you have that surplus, which is powerful. That puts you in control, because most people that complain and whine about writer's block is they have one idea that's due today and it has to be done. And what you said there, and I found this to be true too, because I do something similar. But when you have that surplus of ideas, you get to pick. You get to say, I like this one, I don't like that one. And the cool part is, and if you guys have never tried this, you would not know this, but the cool part is when you have that surplus and you get to say, I like this, I don't like that, it is flow. Because you can go right in and you can bang that out faster than trying to bang your head against the wall with this one idea. It just appears on the page like magic. So I love that. And I want to ask you, and maybe help frame our listeners, because the way I look at writing is a little bit different than maybe other people do. But I look at writing as an assembly process. I look at it as, here's an idea. All right, here's a hook I'm going to use. Here's a story. I have all these things, and then I just put them together like a chef, like boom, 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 boom. oh, this recipe came together really easily. But it's because of that process of training yourself, having that surplus. And I'm not writing an email. I'm assembling, or for me, it was for articles, right? I was assembling articles. I had a headline. I had a story that I was starting with, and then I had the rest of it. But I think looking at it as assembly took a lot of pressure off of me when I had to produce.
Yeah, I think that, what we're really talking about here is being in flow state versus forced state. And I think most writers operate in forced state, which is what you talked about, where they wake up, I got to get an email written for this particular thing, and they're trying to force it through. And when you get good at writing, and the style that I write is very simple. It's, headline, topic, transition, call to action, same thing. And the topic is my story that I write on. So I just, every single email that I write, it's the same way. It's a story. And then there's a little transition, maybe a little one paragraph or a one sentence transition, and then into a call to action. And frequently I'll write the subject first just to give myself the focus of what I'm writing about, but then I go back and change the subject later. Like the subject, to me, I'm not a copywriter. I don't get all worked up about having beautiful, perfect subjects. People either know my content or they don't. They open it based on who it is. Trying to be clever and cute and manipulative on the subject line is just not where it's at. What it's really about is building a relationship. So I don't really care if people critique it. Oh, he's got boring email subjects. Dude, I don't care. Look at the results. That's all I care about. And what's boring for some is entertaining for others. And I focus on more of the storyline and the entertainment side, right? And then just staying in that flow state instead of trying to be in a forced state. And I think that's the biggest takeaway of this whole episode is set yourself up for the win. Set yourself up to be in flow state and creative instead of forcing things through being in this forced state where you got to get it out. I got to do this. I got to do that. Nobody likes that crap, right? It feels too much like a damn job.
Like work.
Yeah. So, but if you can look at a quick, and the only job is to get an email out, but you can look at your list and you've got, 35, 40, 100 topics, and you can just skim them like, ooh, that one sounds fun. I'll do that. It's easy. Now it's easy. Right? So this is the Staples easy button for email writing. All right. Just have a surplus of your email bank. And I think when you do that, all those other things come together. Another thing I would really recommend when you're building your email bank is, so I acquire them all day long by things that I see happening around me, rants, things that irritate me. I also go a lot to my help desk, and people that reply to me, those turn into either reward-based emails or shame-based emails, and I get a lot out of that. But another thing that I do is I really anchor back to childhood stories, and those things, what they do is they open my readers up to me. They get to know me, and I tell some crazy stories that are true. They're crazy, but true, man. And really, truth is crazier than fiction, right? I've got an email that I wrote about kicked in the head by a dead cow and going through this whole thing. Well, my dad, we used to raise, beef and pigs and all this stuff. And he had this one damn cow that we were raising to butcher, and the stupid thing would get out all the time and take off, and every time he'd get out, my dad would have to like rope him down, and then the cow would drag him, and then the cow had this propensity. He did this 3 different times where he broke my dad's ribs, where he would drag my dad for a minute to throw him off out, and then he would turn around and charge him and then run right over him and trample him. And so my dad was ready to butcher this damn cow. He couldn't feed him fast enough. He couldn't grow fat. And he just keep bringing it on, and he had all the sayings like, bring it on, fatso, keep eating, it'd be like dead cow walking, dead cow walk. Like my dad was just anything. He was just jonesing to shoot this damn cow. And it got out again. And it was like a month or 2 early before it was scheduled to be butchered. And he's like, that's it, man. That's it. And he brought the cow home in the back of his pickup dead, right? He just went out and shot the damn thing, said, I'm not chasing this stupid son of a bitch anymore. I'm just bringing it home. Brought it home in his pickup. Well, back in the way that we did it is my dad would do kind of the rough butchering, like he would skin it and kind of disembowel it and whatever, but he wouldn't do the fine cuts of cutting up the meat and creating the steaks and all that. He would just do kind of the rough butcher, and then he'd call the butcher, and the butcher would come out and pick it up, take it home, or take it to his office and do it all. Well, so my dad's got this come along attached to the legs of the hooves of the back hooves of the cow, hanging over a big tree branch, because we had this great big redwood tree in the front of our property with massive branches. So he throws the come along over that, loops it over, and he's got the cow hoisted by his hindquarters, and he's skinning it. And he'd been at it for most of the damn day, and the come along snaps. And the cow comes down, and its rear, hooves kick my dad right square in the head, knock him out of the truck.
You got one last hit.
Give him a concussion, right? And so this dead cow, got his final blow. Even dead and half skinned, it still managed to kick my dad right square in the head one last time, right? Well, that's a crazy story, and being able to like list out your craziest stories that you had in your lifetime and add those to your email bank. Don't ever worry about how you relate it. Honestly, it doesn't even matter half the time. It's about entertainment. And oh, by the way, check this out if you want to have some fun or whatever, right? You can easily do a transition. The transition is actually what people worry the most about, and it's the least important. If you've hooked them with the story, they're going to listen when you send them somewhere. And so that's it, Jonathan. I don't think we can, top the being kicked in the head by a dead cow issue for closing this thing out, right? I mean, I think that's about as good as we can go.
That's it. Dead cow walking. All right, cool. So there was a lot there. And I think that this is going to start a trend in a couple more episodes. So what do you have coming up for us next time?
Yeah, related to this topic, we're going to talk about how you stay motivated to write email every day. And that's something I think that I get a lot of emails about from people. We see a lot on the help desk is, gosh, how do you keep the energy up to do this every single day? And so that's what we're going to go into in the next one, Jonathan. Looking
forward to it. Thank you, guys, for tuning in. Another GBES. Oh, wait, that's our call letters. You wouldn't even know that was Go Berserk with the Email Show. Is in the can. We'll be back in your earbuds next time.
Wait, did you just say we're doing email from the can? I mean, come on now.
Well, I don't know what you're doing, but yeah, I'm doing email from the can. Where else would you do it? Too good, too good. We'll see you guys on the next one.
To get a free Berserker Mail test drive with no credit card required, go to startmytestdrive.com. From there, you can play around inside the platform without pressure. Load up emails and campaigns to see how simple the interface is, and get comfy with everything before deciding to join. That's startmytestdrive.com.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.